thank you very much for my viewer. See you again with my show now with Mr. Father Dave. Father Dave, we now we would like to talk about the atrocity in Gaza actually. Entering 18 days of the 2023 Hamas versus Israel war. According to Palestinian Minister of Health, Israel attack have so far killed more than 5,000 Palestinians, including 2,055 children and 1,119 women. Well, more than 15 people were injured. The question is where the Israel atrocity exhibition campaign will lead. So, what is your comment, Mr. Father Dave?
But I think the situation is unbelievable, and the most incredible thing about it is that the propaganda coming from the Western media is still depicting this as an act of self-defense. It seems like a bad joke to be able to talk about the massacre of not just combatants, but civilian men, women, and children in such horrendous numbers, and to think that you can keep referring to this as self-defense by any rational dialogue is just incredible. So it's a testimony to the strength of Western propaganda that people are still buying it. I think it's atrocious, and it cries out to heaven for redress. It leaves me speechless.
Okay, Father Dave. You know that the words now condemn the atrocity by Israeli IDF, and now granted by Mr. Biden, Mr. Macron, and Prime Minister of British. So it's look like this massacre show openly. We know that in 1948 or before, there were very horrific Nakba day. And now, you know that the Jews stay openly. They will do a massacre. They will do Nakba again. So seem like this massacre is openly to the world, is in mass media, in newspaper, in television, very openly. What do you think about this atrocity?
Yeah, you're 100% right. It seems like a second Nakba. I mean, I don't know what the goal is here. I don't know whether, I mean, there are so many unknowns here. Some people think that the whole Hamas attack was a false flag operation, or at least that the Israelis must have known what was going on with all their surveillance, for goodness sake, and with the American surveillance going on. Is it really possible that an attack of this scale could have been planned without them knowing about it? If they did know about it and let it happen, it was for the sake of this operation that's going on now, we assume. One sinister interpretation is to look at the amount of natural gas off the shore of Gaza and to say that the ultimate goal of Israel is both to expand into Gaza and take possession of the area, and so also simultaneously take possession of the natural gas reserves that are off the coast, that it's motivated by as much by money as by the grab for land. I don't know, you know what I mean? And I don't think any of us know for sure, but it's hard to believe that, the idea that this is a simple act of self-defense is absurd. So either it's a terrible act of vengeance, which is somehow being excused through the Western media narrative, or it's a deliberate land grab with a view to both the natural resources of Gaza as well as the territory. Pushing the residents of Gaza perhaps into Jordan, into Egypt, into I don't know where they're supposed to go. I mean, it's like an open air prison there, isn't it? Really, where can they go? But God knows, it can't be allowed to continue like this. I don't think the Arab world will stand up and allow it to continue like this.
Yes.
I mean, I speak with my many friends in Syria, and I know for Muslim people worldwide, it's like an article of faith to opposition to the occupation. I can't see the Arab world sitting on its hands while this continues. If we really are looking at a process, a complete dare I say, Holocaust, a complete annihilation of the population of Gaza, I don't see the Arab world as sitting on their hands, even if the Western media convinces much of the Western world that this is a simple act of self-defense. I don't think the Arab world will be fooled, and I don't think they'll sit on their hands. So I see the potential for a much broader conflagration here, very imminent. I mean, I've made 9 trips to Syria in the last 10 years, and I'm very familiar with the feeling there, and of course, they continue to suffer bombing attacks from Israel on a weekly basis. But you look at the mood in Lebanon at the moment, and across the Arab world. I mean, what's so remarkable is when you think of the divisions between Sunni and Shia, and the one thing which it seems is an article of faith for Muslims of every type of persuasion is their opposition to the Palestinian occupation. And we've seen the switch already with MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, I think abandoning that normalization of relationships with Israel. And maybe that was one of the aims of the Hamas attack, to stop this happening. But I think in Bahrain and where Morocco and the UAE, which had already gone through this normalization process, now there's a lot of backtracking taking place. Israel is closing its embassies, understandably. And my feeling and my fear is that the Arab world will unite against Israel here and lead us into a much broader conflagration, which ultimately could be worse for everybody. So, but God knows, and I mean that literally, God knows where this is going.
Okay. Okay, Father David, I highlight your mention about the colonialism. We know that I think in Australia has been colonized by British too, and we know that the issue of Aborigine lately. And I want to know about the opinion in what I say in the common Australian people regarding to this issue and the elite in Australia. What do you think about this issue? It seems like
I think
what do you think about that?
I've been encouraged to see the number of protests being raised in support of Palestine, more than I'd expected. And it's very politically incorrect. We had the Israeli flag on the Opera House at one point shined on there, which I thought was an incredible act to take. And interestingly, Clover Moore, the mayor of City of Sydney, refused to do the same with the, I think the town hall or something. They wanted similar, and she refused to go that way. And she and other politicians who've been showing sympathy to the situation of the Palestinians have been coming under attack from expected quarters. But the fact that these things are continuing to happen and continue to be said, at the one level, you've got politicians, we'll do what America tells us to do. And I'm disappointed to see the Prime Minister not being more nuanced in his response. But there's a strong wave of support for the Palestinian people across this country now at a grassroots level. I think at a high political level, there's still strong control of the media, and there's still strong loyalty to the US agenda.
So
I think the US agenda rather than the Israeli agenda, but they coincide at this point, obviously.
So the elite in Australia opinion contradict with the grassroots of Australia people. So I think the grassroots of Australian people, the access maybe like social media, not in mainstream media, and now getting that the awareness of the of the Palestine issue now getting better and better. Do you think so?
I think so. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I've been pleasantly surprised by the outpouring of support I'm seeing for Palestine across the country. It's coming under a lot of criticism. The recent protest, I think, was at the Sydney Town Hall, all the protesters were asked to make sure they weren't wearing any face coverings. The police are asking, and the assumption is that they're going to be digitally identified, and
Do,
they're being watched,
yes. Do you
which
think
may
that?
be the
Yes.
case.
Do you think that the demonstrator are Muslim? Most of them Muslim. Are there any Christian? What do you think about that? The diversity of the the mass.
Look, I mean, I think people are angry, and that's understandable. But I
Mm.
think people are angry and upset and frightened on both sides. I think there are certainly uh, Jewish people who feel afraid of a prejudicial backlash, and not without justification. And I can appreciate there's a level of fear there within the Jewish community, which I think needs to be respected and understood. At the same time, for very understandable reasons, there's enormous passion amongst the Arab communities in Sydney for what's being done to the Palestinian people, and amongst Muslims across Australia, I think, especially about what they see as the betrayal of the Palestinian people and the mass murder of the people of Gaza. And of course, that arouses passion. And of course, the potential for people scapegoating the Jewish community and backlash in that direction is real. And we don't want to see that happen. We want to see this is not about race.
Mm.
It's about politics, and it's about the brutal actions of a particular government, the Israeli government. Um, and I appreciate Hamas didn't help the situation,
Mm.
in their own actions. And I'm not a supporter of Hamas or the Muslim Brotherhood. I've seen some of the things they've done in Syria and elsewhere. I'm not suggesting that I want to support what they did, but this isn't about them, and it's not. It's about the people of Palestine, the people of Gaza in particular, about their right to live, and and to be protected from this sort of violence, and to use the Hamas attack, however terrible that was, as an excuse for the mass murder of men, women, and children across Gaza is completely unjustifiable and obnoxious, and it cries out to God for redress.
Father Dev, are you trying to say for Jews community in Australia know better about the that the divided society or in elite in in Israel, that they know well about the politics, they know well about the that opponent of Benjamin Netanyahu. Do you think
Look,
that they know well?
I have found that the strongest supporters of Palestine I've known have all been Jews. The person who got me into this, how many years ago now, back in the 1980s, was a Jewish friend. The people I've worked with here most commonly in support of Palestine have been Jewish friends. So it's not about race, it's not about ethnicity, it's about political violence.
Mm.
And I appreciate the two aren't completely disconnected. I always remember the illustration used by Yuri Avneri, who was a great Jewish peace activist, who said that after World War II and the persecution of the Jews by the Europeans, not by the Muslims, but by the Christians, the Europeans, the Jews needed somewhere safe to go. It was like a man jumping out of a burning building, but unfortunately, he fell on top of an innocent Palestinian. The Jews were in a terrible situation. That was true after World War II, but it was not the fault of the Palestinians, and they paid the price for that project, and they're continuing to pay, and it's completely unjustified.
So, do you think this atrocity? We know that the atrocity that the Palestinian who live in Gaza or in the West Bank is very very dramatically for decade, not only in this year, but I think this operation by Hamas suddenly and unprecedentedly succeed to waken all of the diversity all over the world. So
Yeah.
it is very different. And do you think that that Jews and Christian in Australia better understanding about what really happened in Palestine, actually.
So in Palestine as a whole, or in this particular operation? I think the whole thing is clouded in a little bit of mystery. The success of the Hamas attack was completely unprecedented and unexpected, from Hamas's point of view. Could that have happened without Israeli compliance? I don't know. Did they let it happen so that they could let this happen? I don't know. I think the things we do know are clear enough, though, which is that the Palestinians have been suffering in their situation from dispossession of their land since 1948, that suffering has been continuous between 1948 and to today, that it's been an ongoing form of deprivation and torture, the restriction of movement, the imprisonment of so many people, the destructions of homes, the different laws and standards that apply to Jews and Arabs. All of that is sort of apartheid state, which we've become familiar with, has been an ongoing reality. The moral imperatives there, I think, are clear, and they continue to be clear regardless of these recent events. But the other thing that is very clear is that the level of retaliation and violence that's being carried out on the people of Gaza now is completely unjustified and inexcusable, and it needs to end.
Okay, Father Dev, I want to ask you about the issue of displacement here. According to Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian, he said that the ultimate goal of Israel regime bombardment of Gaza is to force transfer of the population of Gaza and West Bank to the Sinai region of Egypt and part of Jordan. What do you think
Yeah,
about it?
yeah, I think that's extremely plausible. I mean, just given the scale of the violence at the moment, it's hard to think that they have anything less in mind. I mean, we don't know, but what if not that? What are they trying to do? As I say, that the potential goal could be to expand the state of Israel into Gaza and so take possession of the offshore natural gas fields, which would give them an economic motive as well as a political one for, broadening the boundaries of their land. So I think it certainly there are people within Israel who would want to see that happen. Politicians who would want to see that happen. Is that what they're doing? I think quite possibly. If so, it can only come at the cost of the blood of so many people, and we must do whatever we can to prevent that, because it's a Holocaust. It's ethnic cleansing. It's we can't in any way condone that.
Yes, Father Dev, very sure. You know that because you know that this atrocity, this genocide, has a political goal, and if we see the map of Israel under the Israel Constitution, no border, so they can expand whether with the that military operation or political process. And like Abdullahian indicate that the Tel Aviv is trying to establish a Palestinian state outside of historical land of Palestine. But he said the resistance had become the main obstacle to the realization of Zionist nightmare. So we are talking about the resistance here. Do you think the resistance front with the Hamas or Hezbollah and other parties is a part of positive for liberation for their land? What do you think about it?
Look, it's hard to know. I mean, Hezbollah in Lebanon has been remarkably successful. The last time Israel clashed directly with Hezbollah, the Hezbollah did very well, and embarrassed, I think, the Israelis. Hamas, as I say, if this attack was not, done with Israeli acquiescence, then they've shown themselves to be a remarkably more effective than most of us assumed they could be. So, to what extent can these act as a reasonable resistance? I mean, the IDF is very powerful, I mean, no doubt about that. But they also have lots of nuclear weapons. How that would can function at a local, regional level is hard to
Yes.
understand. But it does make us cautious, in terms of pushing the Israeli government too far. I've only ever been in the country once, and it was a rough and violent time when I was there. And people there spoke about the Samson solution. If you know the story of Samson in the Torah, that when he dies by killing all his enemies at the same time, and there were lots of people there who would say, if if we are overrun, this will be our solution. Everybody goes up with nuclear explosion. I trust that's not the plan, but certainly there were some people, when I was there, who I'd speak to then, who would rather see everybody die than concede to the Palestinian people. For God's sake, let's hope it doesn't come to that or to anything like that. And I think really the goals of the BDS is what we should be aiming for, which is the end of the occupation, equal right for Arabs in Israel, and the right of return in some level. Those three things are not impossible. They're not politically unachievable. I think the very concept of a second state now within Israeli borders now is impossible because of the growth of the settlements over the last 50 years. But to be able to do what the BDS was asking for, and that was supported by every section of Palestinian society, and also the so-called prisoners document, which Hamas agreed to too. So I think this would broadly meet the needs of the Palestinian people, those three things: ending of the military occupation, equal rights for Arabs, and the right of return in some symbolic way. If we could do that, and if we could somehow force or push the Israeli government to concede to those three things, I think we'd have the potential for real and lasting peace. And it's not impossible. We used to say that, peace in South Africa, no, it's far too difficult. You don't understand. You've never been to South Africa, etc. It wasn't that difficult. I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect, but there have been enormous steps forward in that state. Likewise with Northern Ireland, I remember people saying, "Oh, you'll never fix that. You don't understand how deep the problem is." Well, we did. I'm not saying the people there all love each other. They're not holding hands, singing songs together, but there's stability there, and people are moving forward together. That is possible. It's possible in Israel, Palestine as well. I really believe that, and I really think the way forward is to try to push for the goals of the BDS. Simple: to end the military occupation, equal rights for Arabs, and right of return. That's enough.
So,
That's good and just.
yes, Father Dev, seem like you want to try to say that the peace process, we cannot trust any more peace process, because if after bombing, yeah, maybe United States and Israel will offer
Yeah.
Hamas to make a peace process anymore. And for
Well,
1948 until now, peace process is only peace process.
yes, but this is because we've had the United States always trying to be the broker of the peace process, and the United States is not a neutral broker. They can't be an honest broker in this thing because they're too partisan to the cause of Israel. Now, but what we've seen in the last few years and very recently, the rise of the BRICS nations. Brazil, India, Russia, China, South Africa, and the joining of the BRICS nations by countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran potentially. We've now got a different power block and potentially different brokers. If the Russians perhaps could act as brokers in the peace process between Israel and the Palestinians, we may see a very different outcome. If China gets involved as a broker, we may see a very different outcome.
So,
And I think there's enormous potential there.
yes, in another way, we can say that forget about two-state solution, just dismantling apartheid
Yes,
system.
forget about the two-state
Dismantling,
solution.
yes,
Absolutely. Yeah.
dismantling about the apartheid system. Do you think so?
Yeah.
Okay, Father Dave, I think our conversation very, very interesting, and we can say that I want to know more about the deep inside opinion of grassroots Australian people about this issue, and I'm very happy tonight. We hear that getting better and better, and I hope that your elite will understand that apartheid system is very, very cruel for the people, very painful, and I hope that this year will yeah will lead to the freedom of Palestine. Thank you, Father Dave. We can talk another debate, and I think with another that I will try to find the resource from Indonesia or another country to talk about the Palestine issue. Thank you, Father Dave. See you.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. Thank you very much for your time.